Scripture shows us something very clear. God cares deeply about the condition of the human heart. Not just our actions, not just our discipline, but our inner life. Proverbs tells us that everything we do flows from the heart. That means when the heart is wounded, everything downstream is affected. Our decisions, our faith, our relationships, and even how we experience God. Many people enter a new year carrying emotional wounds they never brought before the Lord. They assume that because time passed, healing happened. But the Bible never teaches that time heals, God heals. And when wounds are ignored instead of surrendered, they don't disappear. They shape us quietly, often without our awareness. In Scripture, we see faithful people who loved God deeply and were still wounded. David was wounded by betrayal. Elijah was wounded by exhaustion and fear. Hannah was wounded by years of disappointment. Even Job carried deep emotional pain while remaining faithful. The presence of wounds never meant the absence of faith. But healing only began when those wounds were brought honestly before God. One of the most damaging beliefs among Christians is the idea that strong faith means suppressing pain. But the Bible shows the opposite. The Psalms are filled with raw prayers, grief, confusion, anger, lament, and questions directed straight to God. David didn't hide his pain to appear spiritual. He exposed it so God could heal it. Suppressed pain does not glorify God. Surrendered pain does. When emotional wounds are left unhealed, they begin to distort how we interpret God. In Scripture, wounded hearts often misinterpret silence as abandonment. Think of Elijah under the broom tree. He believed he was alone and forgotten, even though God was actively sustaining him. Pain narrows perspective. It does not mean God is distant. It means the wound is loud. The Bible also teaches that forgiveness and healing are related, but not identical. Jesus commands forgiveness because it frees the heart from bitterness. But Scripture also speaks of God binding up wounds, restoring souls, and renewing minds, processes that take time. Forgiveness is an act of obedience. Healing is often a journey of restoration. Rushing that process does not make someone more spiritual. It often leaves them emotionally fragmented. Jesus never rushed wounded people. He noticed them. He stopped for them. He asked questions that allowed pain to surface. When Bartimaeus cried out, Jesus didn't silence him. He invited him closer. When the woman at the well spoke from a wounded past, Jesus didn't shame her. He revealed truth with compassion. Christ's ministry consistently made space for emotional honesty. Unhealed wounds also affect how we relate to others. Scripture warns that bitterness, if left unchecked, can take root and trouble many. Emotional wounds don't stay private. They influence reactions, defensiveness, withdrawal, and fear of vulnerability. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs that something inside needs God's healing touch. Another biblical pattern we see is this. Wounded people often choose protection over obedience. After pain, the heart learns to guard itself. But Scripture teaches that guarding the heart does not mean closing it. It means stewarding it wisely under God's authority. When wounds remain unhealed, protection turns into walls, and walls prevent growth. This is why many people repeat emotional cycles year after year. Israel left Egypt physically, but Egypt lived in their hearts. They entered a new season carrying old fears, old mindsets, and old wounds. As a result, they struggled to trust God even after seeing His power. New environments cannot heal old wounds if the heart remains unchanged. The Bible is clear that God desires truth in the inward being. Healing begins when we stop pretending and start bringing our real condition before Him. Scripture says God is close to the brokenhearted, not the performative, not the self-sufficient, but the honest. God does not heal what we hide, He heals what we surrender. Healing does not mean reliving trauma endlessly or dwelling in the past. Biblically, healing means allowing God to speak truth where lies formed, to bring light where shame took root, and to restore what pain distorted. God uses Scripture, prayer, wise counsel, and sometimes professional help, all of which are consistent with biblical wisdom. Seeking help is not a lack of faith, it is obedience to wisdom. If you enter a new year emotionally wounded, you may still set goals, but your heart will struggle to sustain them. Scripture teaches that endurance flows from hope, not pressure. Motivation fades quickly, but healing produces stability. God is far more concerned with wholeness than with speed. As the new year approaches, Scripture invites us not just to plan, but to examine, to ask God to search the heart, to reveal what was never processed, what was minimized, what was spiritualized instead of healed. These are not dangerous prayers. They are liberating ones. God is not waiting for you to be unbroken before He works in your life, but He does desire to make you whole. You are not behind because you need healing. Many of the people God used most powerfully were people who allowed Him into their wounds. You don't have to enter the new year carrying what hurt you last year. Scripture promises that God restores the soul, not instantly, not superficially, but faithfully. Healing may be a process, but it is a process God walks with you through. This year does not have to repeat the last one. Not because circumstances will be perfect, but because your heart can be healthier. And when the heart heals, cycles break. That is biblical, that is real, and that is possible.